Welcome to Horrified Stories, where fear comes to life. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-chilling tales. Let's start our today's story, Midnight at the Haunted Manor. A ghost story. Midnight at the Haunted Manor. A ghost story. The invitation. In the small, sleepy town of Blackwood, whispers of the old Ashwood Manor lingered like a fog. Perched on a hill and cloaked in shadows, the manor had stood abandoned for over a century. Locals claimed it was cursed, that the restless spirits of its past inhabitants roamed the halls, searching for peace they could never find. Few dared to venture near it, and those who did rarely spoke of what they saw or didn't see. The story began on a chilly autumn evening, when the town was wrapped in the golden hues of falling leaves. It was the night that four friends Eleanor, Jake, Priya, and Carter received an anonymous invitation to spend one night in Ashwood Manor. The invitation was delivered in a black envelope, sealed with a blood-red wax stamp in the shape of an eye. Inside was a simple, handwritten note: "Enter if you dare, survive until dawn, and the truth shall be revealed. Midnight awaits." Despite their better judgment, the allure of the unknown proved too tempting. Each had their reasons for accepting the challenge. Eleanor, a skeptic, wanted to debunk the supernatural claims. Jake, an amateur filmmaker, saw it as the perfect opportunity for a viral documentary. Priya, a history enthusiast, was intrigued by the manor's dark past. And Carter, he never backed down from a dare. As the clock struck 11:30 p.m., the friends gathered at the manor's rusty gates. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. A full moon cast a pale glow over the scene, illuminating the overgrown path leading to the entrance. "This place gives me the creeps," Priya muttered, clutching her flashlight tightly. "That's the point," Carter said with a grin, though his bravado didn't mask the slight tremor in his voice. Eleanor examined the envelope again, her analytical mind racing. "Whoever sent this knows us. They knew we'd come? Maybe it's some elaborate prank," Jake suggested, adjusting his camera. "But if it is, it's going to make one hell of a video." The iron gate groaned as they pushed it open, the sound echoing through the still night. As they approached the manor, the sheer size of the building became apparent. Its towering spires and broken windows loomed over them like watchful eyes. The front door, a massive oak slab with intricate carvings, creaked open as if inviting them inside. The interior was even more foreboding than they had imagined. Dust coated every surface, and cobwebs draped the chandeliers like ghostly curtains. The air was thick and cold, carrying the faint scent of mildew. A grand staircase wound its way to the upper floors, its steps groaning with age. "This is it," Jake whispered, his camera capturing every detail. "The start of our greatest adventure." "Or our biggest mistake," Priya countered, glancing nervously at the shadows that seemed to move on their own. As they ventured deeper into the manor, they discovered a faded journal lying on a dusty piano. The cover was cracked leather, and the pages were brittle with age. Carter picked it up and began reading aloud. "October 31st, 1895. Tonight, the ritual will be completed. The veil shall lift, and the truth will be ours. May the spirits forgive us for what we've done." A chill ran through the group. "What ritual?" Eleanor asked, her voice steady, despite the unease creeping into her thoughts. Before anyone could answer, the grandfather clock in the corner struck midnight. The chimes reverberated through the house, louder and longer than they should have been. The room seemed to shudder, and an oppressive silence fell over them. Then came the whispers. They started faintly, like a breeze rustling through leaves, but quickly grew louder. Voices, indistinct and layered, filled the room. The friends exchanged panicked glances, their earlier confidence crumbling. "Did anyone else hear that?" Priya asked, her voice barely audible. "Yeah, we all did," Carter replied, his bravado replaced by genuine fear. Eleanor stepped forward, trying to locate the source of the whispers. "It's probably the wind. Old houses make all kinds of noises." But even she didn't believe her own explanation. As they moved through the manor, the whispers followed them, growing louder and more distinct. They spoke of betrayal, loss, and vengeance, their tones dripping with malice. The friends stumbled into what appeared to be a dining room. A long table stretched across the space, set with tarnished silverware and cracked china. At the center was a single, unlit candelabra. "Light it," Jake said, handing Carter a lighter. "Maybe it'll give us a clue." Reluctantly, Carter lit the candles. As the flames flickered to life, they illuminated a series of words carved into the table. "They watch, they wait, they hunger." Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and the room plunged into darkness. The candles extinguished themselves, leaving the friends in pitch black. Priya screamed as something brushed past her, cold and clammy like a corpse hand. "What was that?" Jake shouted, fumbling for his flashlight. A deep, guttural growl echoed through the room, followed by a burst of laughter, manic, echoing, and inhuman. When the lights flickered back on, the group found themselves no longer alone. Shadowy figures stood at the edges of the room, their forms shifting and indistinct. Glowing eyes pierced the darkness, fixated on the intruders. "Run!" Eleanor yelled, grabbing Priya's arm. They bolted from the dining room, the shadows following close behind. The manor seemed to twist and shift around them, doors leading to unfamiliar hallways and staircases that spiraled endlessly. Panic set in as the whispers grew deafening, accompanied by the sound of footsteps that weren't their own. Finally, they burst into a small parlor and slammed the door shut behind them. Their breaths came in ragged gasps as they tried to process what was happening. The room was eerily quiet, save for the crackling of a fire that hadn't been there moments ago. Above the fireplace hung a portrait of a family, a stern-looking man, a sorrowful woman, and a young girl with hollow eyes. "That's them," Priya whispered, pointing to the journal in Carter's hand. "The ones who performed the ritual." Before anyone could respond, the girl in the portrait turned her head and looked directly at them. Her painted lips parted, and she spoke in a voice that chilled them to the bone. "You shouldn't have come." Shadows in the hall. The heavy oak doors creaked open, revealing a dim corridor lit only by flickering candles mounted on the walls. Sarah, trembling yet resolute, stepped into the manor, followed closely by her skeptical best friend, Jason. Behind them trailed Ethan and Chloe, the amateur ghost hunting duo, both equipped with cameras, voice recorders, and high-tech gadgets meant to detect the supernatural. The atmosphere inside the manor was oppressive. The air was heavy, carrying the faint scent of decaying wood and mildew. The floor beneath their feet groaned with every step, and shadows seemed to stretch and sway as if alive. "Are we seriously doing this?" Jason muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought we were just going to look around the outside and leave." Chloe shot him a glare, her enthusiasm undeterred. "This is the perfect place for our investigation. Don't chicken out now." As they ventured deeper, the group found themselves in a grand foyer. A cracked chandelier hung precariously from the ceiling, its crystals catching the dim candlelight. An ornate staircase spiraled upward into the darkness, its railings adorned with cobwebs. Faded portraits lined the walls, their subjects staring down with hollow, judgmental eyes. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that those eyes were watching her every move. "This place is unsettling," she admitted. "Do you think the stories are true?" Chloe grinned, adjusting her camera. "That's what we're here to find out." Ethan, busy fiddling with a thermal scanner, added, "If there's any place to find evidence of the paranormal, it's here. The history of this manor is chilling. Multiple disappearances, tragic deaths, and unexplained phenomena. It's like a ghost hunter's dream." Suddenly, the sound of a piano echoed through the foyer, freezing everyone in place. The haunting melody seemed to come from the next room. "Did anyone else hear that?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Jason nodded, his face pale. "Yeah, and I vote we leave now." Ignoring him, Chloe led the way toward the sound. They entered a lavish parlor, its once opulent furniture now covered in dust and tattered fabric. In the corner stood a grand piano, its keys moving as if an invisible hand were playing them. "Is this real?" Ethan whispered, capturing the scene on his camera. The music stopped abruptly. Silence fell, thick and suffocating. Then, The temperature in the room plummeted. Sarah could see her breath fogging in the air. "Something's here," Ethan said, his voice quivering. The thermal scanner in his hand beeped frantically. "It's right next to us." Before anyone could react, a chilling laugh echoed through the room, and the piano slammed shut with a deafening bang. Sarah screamed as an icy hand seemed to brush against her arm. She spun around, but no one was there. "Okay, that's it," Jason shouted. "We're leaving now." But as they turned to leave, the parlor door slammed shut on its own, trapping them inside. The candles flickered violently, and the laughter grew louder, filling the room. "Who's there?" Chloe demanded, her voice trembling but defiant. She held out her voice recorder. "Show yourself." The laughter stopped. In its place came a low, guttural whisper that sent chills down their spines. "You shouldn't have come." The group huddled together as a cold wind whipped through the room, scattering papers and knocking over a chair. The shadows on the walls began to writhe, forming distorted, humanoid shapes that crept closer with each passing second. Sarah clutched Jason's arm, her heart pounding. "What do we do?" Ethan frantically searched through his bag and pulled out a small vial of salt. "This might help. They say spirits can't cross a line of salt." He poured a circle of salt around the group, and the shadows stopped, hesitating at the edge of the barrier. The whispering grew louder, angry and incoherent, as if the spirits were frustrated. "Is it working?" Sarah asked, her voice barely audible. "For now," Ethan replied, "but we can't stay here. We need to find a way out." The group slowly made their way toward a second door at the back of the parlor. Staying within the protective circle of salt, the door creaked open to reveal a long, narrow hallway. The walls were lined with mirrors, each one cracked or shattered, reflecting distorted images of the group. "I don't like this," Jason said, his voice shaking. "This place is messing with our heads." Chloe raised her camera, filming the eerie hallway. "Keep moving. We need to document everything." As they stepped into the hallway, the mirrors seemed to ripple like water. Their reflections moved independently, grinning wickedly and beckoning them closer. Sarah frowned, unable to look away from her reflection. It was smiling a wide, unnatural smile that didn't match her own terrified expression. "Sarah," Jason grabbed her arm, breaking her trance. "Don't look at them." The group hurried down the hallway, the distorted reflections banging against the glass as if trying to break free. The sound was deafening, a cacophony of shattering glass and sinister laughter. They burst through another door, finding themselves in what appeared to be a library. Shelves of ancient books stretched up to the high ceiling, and a massive fireplace dominated one wall. The room felt slightly warmer, but the sense of dread remained. Ethan slumped against a shelf, catching his breath. "What is this place?" "It's like the house is alive." "It probably is," Chloe said, scanning the room with her camera. "Haunted houses often have a consciousness of their own. It feeds on fear." Jason glared at her. "Well, it's getting a feast tonight." Suddenly, a book flew off one of the shelves, landing at Sarah's feet. She picked it up, her hands trembling. The cover was worn and blank, but when she opened it, the pages were filled with hastily scrawled warnings. "Leave now. It's too late. They are watching." A low growl echoed through the library, and the fireplace roared to life, casting eerie shadows across the room. The group huddled together, realizing that the night was far from over and whatever haunted this manor wasn't about to let them go without a fight. The secrets of the manor. The flames in the library's fireplace danced with unnatural vigor, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. The air grew heavier with each passing second, suffocating the group as though the house itself was aware of their presence. "What's next?" Jason asked, his voice barely concealing his panic. "We can't just stay here and wait for whatever's out there." Sarah clutched the ominous book to her chest, her mind racing. "The warning's in here. Maybe there's something useful, a way to stop this." Ethan leaned over her shoulder, squinting at the faded scroll. "Most of these are just warnings to leave. But look here." He pointed to a page near the middle of the book. The text described a ritual, one designed to ward off spirits and escape from cursed locations. Is that legit? Chloe asked, her camera still rolling, or is it some old superstition? At this point, I'm willing to try anything, Sarah said. It says we need a personal belonging from the spirit, a source of light. And she hesitated, her voice dropping to a whisper. A drop of blood from each of us. Jason took a step back. Oh, come on, this is insane. We don't even know whose spirit is haunting this place. Chloe raised an eyebrow. Actually, we might. The manor's history is full of tragedy, but there's one name that keeps coming up, Marguerite Sinclair. She was the last owner of this house before it was abandoned. People say she went mad and cursed the manor before disappearing. Disappearing? Ethan repeated. Or dying here. Chloe shrugged. No one knows for sure, but if she's the one haunting this place, then maybe we need something of hers. Like what? Jason asked, exasperated. Her jewelry, her diary, her ghostly scarf. Before anyone could answer, a library door slammed shut, and the fire flared brighter. The book in Sarah's hands flipped open on its own, the pages rustling as though an invisible force was searching for something. The movement stopped abruptly, revealing a page filled with an elaborate drawing of the manor. What is this? Sarah murmured. She traced her finger over the map, noticing a small, marked room hidden at the far end of the house. This looks like a secret room. Maybe that's where we'll find something of hers. Ethan nodded, already packing his gear. Let's go. We're running out of time. The corridor of whispers. The group exited the library cautiously, entering a narrow hallway that seemed darker than before. The walls were adorned with peeling wallpaper, and faint whispers echoed around them, as though the house itself was speaking. Every step felt heavier, the oppressive energy growing stronger. Sarah led the way, clutching the book like a lifeline. This map says the room should be down this hall and to the right. Should be, Jason muttered, not exactly reassuring. As they walked, the whispers grew louder, transforming into indistinct voices that seemed to echo their own fears. Chloe frowned, her camera trembling in her hands. Did you hear that? What now? Jason snapped, his nerves frayed. Chloe turned her camera toward the wall. It said my name. I swear it said my name. No one said your name, Ethan replied, though his voice wavered. Sarah stopped abruptly, staring at a series of portraits lining the hall. Each one depicted a different member of the Sinclair family, their expressions grim and lifeless. But as she passed them, the faces seemed to change. Their eyes followed her, their mouths curving into sinister grins. Guys, she whispered, I think they're watching us. Jason glanced at the portraits and shuddered. Nope, not looking at that. Keep moving. The group hurried down the hall, the whispers now a deafening cacophony. When they reached the end, Sarah hesitated. The map indicated the hidden room was behind the last door, but this door was unlike the others. It was heavy and carved with intricate symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. Is this it? Chloe asked, reaching out to touch the symbols. Don't, Ethan shouted, grabbing her arm. We don't know what that could do. Sarah pushed the book into Ethan's hands. It's here. This has to be the place. The book might explain how to open it. Ethan scanned the text, his flashlight flickering ominously. It says we need to speak her name, Marguerite Sinclair. Jason scoffed. That's it. Just say her name. Fine. Marguerite Sinclair. That door groaned, the symbols glowing brighter before dimming again. Nothing else happened. Ethan frowned. I think it is to come from all of us. Together. The group exchanged uneasy glances, but nodded. In unison, they spoke. Marguerite Sinclair. The door creaked open, revealing a small, discovered room. It was sparsely furnished, containing only a writing desk, a cracked mirror, and an antique chest. The air was thick with the smell of decay, and the temperature plummeted as they stepped inside. The spirit's lair. Chloe immediately began filming the room. This has to be it. Look at all this. It's like no one's been here in decades. Sarah approached the chest cautiously. If there's anything personal of hers, it'll be in here. She knelt and opened the chest, her heart racing. Inside were a collection of faded letters, a lace handkerchief, and a silver locket. Sarah picked up the locket and opened it. revealing a small portrait of a woman with piercing eyes. The name Marguerite was etched on the inside. "This must have been hers," Sarah whispered. Suddenly, the mirror on the wall cracked, and the room was filled with a bone-chilling scream. The locket grew cold in Sarah's hand, and she dropped it instinctively. "She knows we're here," Ethan said, his voice shaking. "We need to do the ritual now." Before they could react, the shadows in the room began to twist and coalesce, forming a dark, humanoid figure. The air grew heavier, pressing down on them like a physical weight. "You shouldn't have come," the figure hissed, its voice echoing unnaturally. "This is my home." Chloe raised her camera, her hands trembling. "Hey, we're sorry. We just want to leave." The figure laughed, a hollow, chilling sound. "Live. You will never leave." The shadows surged forward, and the group screamed as the door slammed shut behind them. The ritual of escape. The shadowy figure loomed over the group, its inky form pulsating as if alive. The room seemed to close in on itself, the air thick and cold enough to make breathing difficult. Sarah clutched the book, its pages fluttering wildly as though caught in an invisible wind. "Stay together," Ethan shouted, holding up the vial of salt. He poured the remaining grains in a circle around the group, the makeshift barrier flickering with a faint glow as the entity recoiled. The figure hissed, its voice reverberating off the walls. "You think salt can stop me, foolish mortals." Jason pressed himself against the wall, his knuckles white as he gripped a broken chair leg like a makeshift weapon. "What are we supposed to do now? That thing isn't going to let us leave." Sarah opened the book to the page with the ritual. Her hands shook as she read aloud. "We need the locket as the personal item, a flame as a source of light, and a drop of blood from each of us." Ethan nodded. "Then let's do it. We don't have time to argue." Preparing the ritual, Chloe retrieved the locket from the floor, careful not to let her fingers linger on its icy surface. "Here," she said, handing it to Sarah. "What's next?" "We need a fire," Sarah replied, scanning the room. The only source of flame was the group's flashlight, but Ethan shook his head. "I brought candles," he said, pulling a thick black one from his bag. He lit it with a small lighter, the flame wavering uncertainly. "And the blood?" Jason asked, his voice tight. "How are we supposed to?" Chloe rolled her eyes and reached for the pocket knife strapped to her belt. "We just need a tiny cut." "Right, quit being dramatic." She pricked her finger and let a drop of blood fall onto the locket. The shadows surged against the salt barrier, hissing and wailing as if enraged by the ritual's beginning. "Quickly," Ethan urged. One by one, the group added their blood to the locket. When it was Jason's turn, he hesitated, his face pale. "What if this doesn't work? What if it makes things worse?" "Then we'll be stuck here forever," Sarah snapped. "Do it, Jason." With a deep breath, he pricked his finger, letting the drop of blood mix with the others on the locket. The moment it landed, the locket began to glow faintly, emitting a soft warmth that contrasted with the frigid air around them. "The spirit strikes," the shadowy figure screeched, its form twisting violently as it slammed against the salt barrier. The candles flickered, nearly extinguishing, and the walls of the room groaned as if the house itself were alive. "You think you can banish me?" the entity growled. Its voice was layered, each word overlapping like an echo of rage. "This is my domain. You are mine." Sarah read the incantation from the book, her voice trembling but determined. The words were in a language none of them recognized, but as she spoke, the glow from the locket intensified. The shadows writhed, recoiling as though in pain. "Keep going," Chloe shouted, filming the entire scene despite her shaking hands. "It's working." The figure surged forward, its shape growing larger as it tried to break through the salt barrier. The ground beneath the group began to shake, and the cracked mirror on the wall shattered completely, sending shards flying across the room. "Hold the line," Ethan yelled, tossing more salt from his bag onto the barrier. But the figure was relentless. It reared back and let out a blood-curdling scream, shattering the candles and plunging the room into darkness. The locket's glow was the only light left, pulsing like a heartbeat. The final words. "Sarah," Ethan shouted, "you have to finish the incantation." "I'm trying," she cried, struggling to make out the words in the flickering light. Her voice grew louder, more confident, as she pushed through the ancient text. The locket's glow spread, forming a dome of light that pressed against the darkness. The shadowy figure let out another screech, its form beginning to dissipate. "No, you cannot banish me. This is my home, my curse." Jason grabbed Sarah's arm. "It's not enough. What else does the book say?" Sarah skimmed the remaining lines, her heart sinking. "We have to destroy the locket. It's the anchor for her spirit." Chloe's eyes widened. "Are you serious? If we destroy it, we could release her completely. Or it could set us free." Ethan countered. "Do it, Sarah. Break it." The entity howled, his voice growing weaker. "Do not destroy it. You will regret it for all eternity." Sarah hesitated, the locket warm in her hand. The spirit's pleading voice echoed in her mind, but so did the screams of the countless victims who had fallen prey to the manor's curse. With tears in her eyes, she made her decision. She hurled the locket into the fireplace. The light and the darkness, the flames roared to life, consuming the locket in a burst of brilliant light. The shadows screamed in agony, twisting and writhing as they were pulled toward the fire. The figure let out one final, bone-chilling wail before exploding into a cloud of smoke that dissipated into the air. The room fell silent. The oppressive weight lifted, and the air grew warmer. The salt barrier flickered and faded, no longer needed. "We did it," Ethan whispered, his voice filled with disbelief. "We actually did it." Jason sank to the floor, his head in his hands. "Can we leave now, please?" Sarah closed the book, her hands trembling. The curse should be broken. The manor, it should be safe now. Chloe panned her camera around the room, capturing the aftermath. "This is going to make an incredible video," she said, though her voice lacked its usual enthusiasm. The group slowly made their way out of the hidden room, the manor eerily quiet. As they stepped into the main hall, the front doors creaked open on their own, revealing the moonlit grounds outside. They didn't look back. The curse lives on. The group stumbled out of the manor and onto the overgrown lawn, the cold night air biting at their skin. For the first time in hours, they felt the weight of the manor's oppressive presence lift from their shoulders. The moon hung high in the sky, casting an ethereal glow over the sinister building. Jason bent over, hands on his knees, as he gasped for breath. "We're alive. I can't believe it. We actually made it out." Sarah clutched the book tightly, her fingers refusing to let go even though the ritual was complete. "Is it really over?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What if we miss something?" Chloe panned her camera across the manor's facade, its windows dark and empty. "The house is quiet. It's over. Sarah, we destroyed the locket. The spirit's gone." But Ethan wasn't so sure. He glanced back at the house, his brow furrowed. The book didn't say anything about what happens after. "What if?" A loud bang interrupted him, making everyone jump. The front door slammed shut on their own, and the faint sound of laughter echoed from inside. "What was that?" Chloe whispered, her camera now pointed at the manor. Jason shook his head. Nope, not dealing with that. Let's just go." The drive back, they piled into Ethan's van, the weight of the night's events settling in as the engine roared to life. The narrow road that led to the manor stretched before them, its trees swaying in the wind like ghostly figures. Jason Saturday in the back, staring out the window. "I don't think I'm ever going to sleep again," he muttered. "That place, it's evil." "We broke the curse," Ethan said, though his tone lacked conviction. "The spirit's gone. It has to be." "Are we sure about that?" Sarah asked, flipping through the book. Her hands were still shaking. "The ritual worked, but there's a whole section here about residual hauntings. What if Marguerite's curse wasn't tied to the locket alone?" Chloe glanced back at her, frowning. "You're overthinking it. We saw her disappear. The house is just unsettled. It'll probably stay creepy forever, but it's not our problem anymore." Sarah wasn't convinced, but she said nothing. She stared at the book, its worn pages filled with secrets she wasn't sure she wanted to uncover. A chilling revelation. An hour into their drive, the van's headlights flickered. Ethan cursed under his breath, pulling over to the side of the road. Great, now the van's acting up. Are you serious? Jason groaned. After everything we've been through tonight, now we're stranded. Ethan popped the hood and stepped out to investigate. Chloe followed, her camera still in hand. Maybe I can get some footage of this for our behind-the-scenes reel. Jason rolled his eyes, because that's what people want to see us stuck on the side of the road. Inside the van, Sarah continued studying the book. Her heart sank as she noticed something she hadn't seen before. In the margin of the ritual page, faint handwriting warned, "Destroying the anchor does not destroy the curse. The house will always claim another." Her blood ran cold. "Ethan, Chloe, get back in the van," she shouted, her voice panicked. Ethan poked his head around the hood. "What's wrong?" "Just get in," Sarah screamed. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted. Frost crept up the windows, and the air inside the van grew thick and icy. Jason's breath fought in the cold, and he looked around in terror. "What's happening?" The faint sound of laughter echoed through the trees. It was the same haunting laugh they uttered in the manor. Ethan and Chloe scrambled back into the van, slamming the door shut. "What's going on?" Chloe demanded, her camera pointed at Sarah. "It's not over," Sarah whispered, clutching the book. "A curse. It's not tied to the locket. It's tied to the house itself." Jason's face paled. "So what does that mean? We're still in danger." Sarah nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "The manor let us go, but it'll need someone else. It always does." As if on cue, the laughter grew louder, and a shadowy figure appeared on the road ahead. It was faint, barely more than a silhouette, but its presence was unmistakable. Ethan slammed the van into gear, peeling away from the side of the road. The shadow didn't move, but its hollow eye seemed to follow them as they sped away. A final warning. The group reached the edge of town just as dawn broke. They parked in a diner lot, exhausted and shaken. Inside, the warmth and light of the bustling diner felt surreal, a stark contrast to the nightmare they had just escaped. Chloe uploaded her footage onto her laptop, reviewing the night's events with a mixture of awe and horror. "This is incredible," she muttered. "People are going to go crazy over this." Jason glared at her. "You're seriously still thinking about views after everything that happened?" "It's proof," Chloe shot back. "We survived something no one else ever has. People need to see this." Ethan looked uneasy. "But what if showing this just spreads the curse? What if it pulls more people to the manor?" That table fell silent. Sarah stared at the book, its cover now marked with a faint handprint that hadn't been there before. She closed it, her decision firm. "We can't let anyone else go there," she said. "We need to bury this book, destroy the footage, make sure no one ever goes back." Chloe's mouth opened to argue, but before she could speak, the diner lights flickered. The group frenzy as a familiar chill crept over them. Sarah's voice was barely audible. "It's not done with us." The faint sound of laughter echoed once more, and the shadow of a figure passed across the window. If you like this story, don't forget to hit the like button, share and subscribe the channel. Help us grow. Thanks for watching.